For 30 years, he built boardrooms, billions, and headlines. For 30 years, miles away, in a diner that time seemed to forget, a young woman poured warmth into she served. He had eaten in the finest restaurants on earth, but nothing prepared him for the moment their eyes met.
In that fleeting touch, something impossible happened. A man who had guarded his heart felt it awaken. No one could have predicted it, not the board members, not the tabloids, what to end, and it would begin with a marriage no one saw coming.
If someone had told Adrian Cole on the morning of his 53rd birthday that he would be married within 30 days, he would have laughed the kind of laugh that ended meetings and silenced boardrooms. He had spent 3 decades building Cole Dynamics into one of the most powerful engineering conglomerates in the country. And in all that time, not a single person had gotten close enough to matter. Before you keep watching, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe, because this story about a lonely billionaire and the humble waitress who changed his life is one you will not want to miss a single second of. Adrian had everything money could buy. A penthouse that overlooked the entire skyline, a private jet he rarely used because there was rarely anywhere he wanted to go, a team of assistants who anticipated his every need before he spoke it aloud. And yet, every night, he came home to an apartment so silent that he sometimes left the television on just to hear another human voice. His mother had died when he was 22, right around the time he inherited the company from his father, who passed only a year later from a heart attack brought on, everyone whispered, by stress and grief. Adrian had thrown himself into work because work did not ask him questions he could not answer, and work did not require him to feel anything at all. Over the years, women had come and gone, some drawn to his money, some to his name, a few perhaps to him, but Adrian had built walls so high around his heart that even the most persistent of them eventually gave up and walked away. His board of directors joked that he was married to the company. His employees whispered that he had ice water in his veins. And Adrian, in the quiet moments when no one was watching, wondered if they were right. On a rainy Thursday evening in late autumn, Adrian's driver took an unfamiliar detour due to a downed tree blocking the usual route home. Adrian, exhausted from a 14-hour day of contract negotiations that had nearly collapsed twice, barely noticed until the car slowed to a stop outside a small, unassuming diner on the corner of a street he did not recognize. The neon sign above the door flickered, half of its letters burned out, spelling out only M.A.'s Kit Hen in tired red light. Adrian almost told his driver to keep going, to find another restaurant, something that matched his tax bracket. But something, hunger, exhaustion, or perhaps some quiet pull he could not name, made him step out into the rain instead. The diner was warm in a way his penthouse never was. Wooden tables worn smooth by decades of elbows and coffee mugs, mismatched chairs, the smell of frying onions and fresh bread hanging comfortably in the air. A handful of regulars sat scattered at booths, nursing coffee and pie, chatting with the ease of people who had known each other for years. Adrian, still in his rain-damp three-piece suit, felt entirely out of place, like a stranger who had wandered onto the set of someone else's life. He almost turned to leave. And then he saw her. Elena Marsh moved through the diner with a kind of grace that had nothing to do with elegance and everything to do with sincerity. She was refilling coffee for an elderly man in the corner booth, laughing at something he said, her whole face lighting up in a way that made the tired diner feel, for just a moment, like the warmest place on earth. She wore a simple cream blouse and a brown apron stained faintly with the day's work, her dark hair falling loose from a bun that had clearly given up trying to stay neat hours ago. She was not dressed to impress anyone. She was not trying to be seen, and yet Adrian could not look away. He took a seat at the counter, feeling suddenly and uncharacteristically nervous, an emotion so unfamiliar to him that he almost did not recognize it. Elena approached with a menu and a tired but genuine smile, the kind of smile that came from a long shift and an even longer week, and asked what she could get him. Adrian, who negotiated multi-million-dollar deals without blinking, found himself fumbling over his words as he ordered a coffee and whatever she recommended. Elena laughed softly, not unkindly, and told him the meatloaf was the best thing on the menu, made from her grandmother's recipe, The same recipe the diner had used since it opened 40 years ago. Adrian ordered it without a second thought. As she set the coffee cup down in front of him, her fingers brushed his hand for the briefest moment, and something happened that Adrian could not explain. Not then, and not for weeks afterward. It was not fireworks. It was not the dramatic click of destiny that movies like to portray. It was quieter than that, and somehow more devastating. A sudden, undeniable feeling that he had been searching his entire life for something, and he had just, quite by accident, found it in a diner with a broken neon sign. He stayed until closing. He told himself it was because of the meatloaf, which, admittedly, was extraordinary. But really, it was because every time Elena passed his end of the counter, she paused to talk to him, asking about his day, his life, careful never to pry but somehow drawing out of him more honesty than he had offered anyone in years. He learned that Elena had been working at the diner since she was 17, that she had taken over more responsibility after her grandmother, the diner's original owner, passed away 3 years earlier, leaving Elena not just the recipes but the mortgage on the building and a stack of debts that kept her working double shifts most weeks. She had dreams once, she told him with a small, wistful laugh, of going to culinary school, of opening her own small restaurant someday. But dreams, she said, had a way of waiting patiently while life demanded attention elsewhere. She did not complain. She did not ask him for anything. She simply told her story the way someone tells the truth to a stranger they never expect to see again. Adrian left that night with her name, Elena, echoing in his mind long after his driver pulled away from the curb. He told himself he would not return. He had a company to run, a board meeting in the morning, obligations stacked upon obligations. But 2 days later, he found himself back at that same counter, in a suit slightly less formal, ordering the same meatloaf and staying until closing once again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Word travels fast in small diners and even faster among Billionaire's assistants, and within 2 weeks, Adrian's closest advisor, a sharp and no-nonsense woman named Patricia, who had worked for his father before him, confronted him directly. She told him the board was starting to whisper, that reporters had begun asking why the reclusive Adrian Cole had been spotted repeatedly at a rundown diner in a neighborhood far beneath his usual haunts. Adrian, uncharacteristically, did not deny it. He told Patricia, with a calm certainty that surprised them both, that he intended to marry the woman who worked there. Patricia, who had known Adrian for over 20 years and had never once heard him speak of marriage, sat down slowly and asked him if he had lost his mind. Adrian's answer was simple. He told her that for 30 years he had been surrounded by people who wanted something from him, and for the first time in his life, he had met someone who wanted nothing at all, except perhaps a moment of his time and honesty in return. That, he said, was worth more than every contract he had ever signed. Elena, for her part, had no idea who Adrian truly was. For the first 3 weeks. She knew him only as a kind, quietly sad man who tipped generously and listened more than he spoke. When she finally discovered his identity, through a chance remark from a regular customer who recognized his face from a business magazine left on the counter, she was stunned into silence and then, briefly, angry. She confronted him the next evening, demanding to know why he had not told her. Whether this had all been some kind of elaborate game, whether she had been a curiosity to him, a story he would tell his wealthy friends over cocktails. Adrian, standing in the rain outside the diner after closing, told her the truth without flinching. He told her that he had not mentioned his company because, for the first time in 30 years, he had wanted someone to see him, not his name, not his money, not his empire. He told her that every night he had left that diner, he had gone home to an apartment so quiet he could hear his own heartbeat, and that in 3 weeks she had filled a silence that had lasted 3 decades. He told her, plainly and without pretense, that he loved her, and that he understood if she needed time or space or wanted nothing more to do with him at all. Elena did not answer immediately. She stood in the rain, studying his face, searching for the lie she was certain must be there. But she found none. She found only a tired, lonely man who had, against every rational expectation of his carefully ordered life, fallen in love with a woman who served him coffee and meatloaf in simple honesty. She told him quietly that she needed time to think. Adrian nodded, respected her wish, and did not return to the diner for 11 days, though Patricia later confessed he had barely slept during any of them. On the 12th day, Elena walked into Cole Dynamics' towering glass headquarters, still in her work apron, ignoring the startled looks of the security guards and receptionists, and rode the elevator directly to Adrian's office on the top floor. She told him, standing in the doorway of a room larger than her entire diner, that she did not care about the company, the money, or the headlines that would surely follow. She cared about the man who had listened to her dreams without judgment, who had shown up every single day for 3 weeks not to be served, but simply to be near her. She told him that she loved him too, and that she was terrified, and that she wanted to try anyway. They were married 4 weeks later, in a small ceremony held not in a grand cathedral or a luxury resort, but in the diner itself, closed for the day, decorated simply with wildflowers and string lights, filled with regulars who had watched their unlikely romance unfold one coffee refill at a time. Adrian wore a suit, as always, but for the first time in 30 years, he smiled the way a man smiles when he has finally stopped waiting for his life to begin. Elena wore her grandmother's wedding dress, carefully preserved for exactly this kind of moment, and carried a small bouquet of flowers Adrian had picked out himself clumsily and with great care from a florist 3 blocks from the diner. The tabloids, of course, went wild. Business magazines ran headlines questioning the merger of a billion-dollar empire with a small-town waitress. Board members demanded meetings. Reporters camped outside the diner for weeks. But Adrian and Elena weathered it together, the way people do when they have already survived the harder battle of finding each other in the first place. Elena eventually did open her small restaurant, funded not by Adrian's fortune, but by her own savings and a business loan she insisted on paying back herself, though Adrian, ever supportive, became its most loyal and least secretive customer. The diner with the broken neon sign was renovated, its name restored to its full glory, and became something of a local legend, the place where a billionaire fell in love with a waitress, and where, if you sat at the right seat at the counter, the meatloaf was still made from the same recipe that started it all. Years later, when people asked Adrian why he waited 30 years to fall in love, he would smile and say that he hadn't been waiting at all. He had simply been living a life that had not yet found its meaning. And when people asked Elena if she had any regrets about the whirlwind nature of their romance, she would shake her head and say that some things in life are worth rushing toward, especially when you finally recognize, without any doubt, that you have found the one person who sees you exactly as you are. Their story became a quiet reminder to everyone who heard it that love does not care about bank accounts or business empires or 30 years of carefully built walls. Sometimes it simply walks in out of the rain, orders a cup of coffee, and changes everything.